Yeah.
We're recording.
Okay.
Talk to me about UFC. You were just saying...
Oh, yes. I was watching all the UFC free fights as a G-up for this weekend.
You've been tuning because this weekend we got Till Whitaker.
No, I think that's on another card. I think
Is that another card?
That's the next one, yeah.
Okay, we got Usman and Masvidal.
Yes.
Yes.
I watched
Fuck.
the Usman Covington fight again.
Oof.
That was fun to watch. I didn't enjoy it as much the first time because I thought, oh God, guys, drop down. Let's see some wrestling going on. But I thoroughly enjoyed it the second time round. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Mate.
Tough
Brutal.
fight.
But JT, why
Broken jaw.
you don't follow much the UFC? You're not a fan?
I've changed my approach to MMA because
Tell.
I used to love MMA, like in a huge way. Like
Don't love it
most
anymore.
exciting thing ever.
It is.
But I think when you get around professional MMA and you spend time around fighters and you see what they put in and then you see what they get back, it's not fair. It's not cool. It's not good. These people are exploited and the machine of the UFC sucks. And yeah, man, it's one of those things that like, even though the entertainment is great, the concussions and the damage, I don't know, you know, like my mum always used to say stuff to me about like, your brain is like a bowl of soup, and she would bang the bowl of soup and be like, that's what happens to your brain every time you get hit in the head. I'm like, I didn't care. I have a thick skull. I think I have that Homer Simpson extra layer of fluid, like less brain and more cushion.
Yeah.
But so I've taken a lot of hits to the head in my lifetime, but I think the thing is I've seen some guys who are the best in Australia, and I've seen kind of what their career has amounted to because of the UFC either wanting them or not.
Yeah.
And because the UFC didn't give them a shot, they spent 10 years making 20 grand a year as a professional fighter and being the best and never getting an opportunity just because the UFC is like, no, we don't need you. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those
I
things.
get ya.
It takes the shine off it when you get behind the curtain a bit.
Is it? So it's a bit of a protest on your, like, to not watch, like, even though you might enjoy it, you're like, no, I'm not going to.
I'm not going to support that.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I just
Give it the airtime.
I wish there was more better people who were fighters. I feel like there was a paradigm shift with Conor McGregor and also Ronda Rousey.
Right.
I felt like the game changed, and it could swing back the other way. But it's like the
Towards people trash talking more?
the glorification of the douchebag.
Ah, yes.
Like, oh no, you're good at fighting, so you can be an asshole. Well, like, no, I don't agree with that. I know, I'm not even trying to be old school here. Like, everybody loves like Nate Diaz, right? Like, we love the Diaz brothers, but they're not fake. Like, that's who they are.
Yeah.
They are the rawest guys. They will brawl with you at the bar of the casino.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're good people, but they are honestly who they are. In the same way, whatever you might think about Khabib is who he is, and you don't play with Khabib. You know, whereas Conor's like, man, why are you so upset for?
Yeah, it's just business.
I criticize your father, your religion, your brother, called you a coward. Why do you want to kill me? You don't play that in Dagestan, you know?
Gets reinforced by the dollars, though.
Yeah,
that behavior.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's rewarded because, sure, I mean, don't get me wrong. Conor gets the hype. People go to the fights. They make money off it. Like, I understand the machine. I don't like it.
Is there any other promotions that you feel don't do that? Like, I don't know them that
It's
well,
the-
but
it's
there
the
are other
circus.
promotions out there.
No, it's the circus. It's not. I'm just saying, like, I've spent a bit more time in the last probably 2 years working with amateur and professional fighters and seeing what they give because they're passionate, and it's nothing. You get nothing. Like, so people go, oh yeah, why would you do, like, for example, we're just contrasting jiu-jitsu and MMA, say, because a lot of people think that MMA is a progression on jiu-jitsu because unfortunately jiu-jitsu is not fully professional. There are people who make money off it, but it's not, the money's not there. Otherwise it'd be more popular even more. But people go, oh, I'm that, like Gilbert Burns, who's going to fight, right? Oh, sorry, he got COVID, so he's not going to fight. I saw Gilbert win his first ever world championship against Kron Gracie. Ran a train on Kron Gracie.
Did he?
14-0. Took his back.
Wow.
All over him.
Gee?
And it was the year, it was the year that they were like, oh, Gracie's going to win a world championship. And I was like supporting Michael Lange. So Kron fought Michael Lange in the semi-final. And I was convinced that Michael should have got an advantage because I was a fanboy and he's my dog, that he attempted a sweep and didn't get it, and that was the only thing that happened in the whole fight.
Is that a guy from Melbourne?
No, he's from Alliance.
Okay.
He's like one of the he used to be one of the best guard players in the world, and they gave the win to Cron just on decision. They're like, there was no advantages and no points. Cron gets the win. And it was like, oh, nothing happened. That's controversial. And then Gilbert Burns burned a hole in Cron Gracie in the final, and everyone was like, oh, 14-0, you got smoked.
Which is a huge point, like, win in jiu-jitsu.
For the final.
You never see that.
The black belt lightweight final. It was a trashing.
Jesus.
So I knew Gilbert Burns was absolute monster. And he actually retired kind of from jiu-jitsu after that and said, I'm going to pursue MMA. That was 2012 or 2011. It's like way back.
Wow.
But then he came back to like no-gi jiu-jitsu and he smoked Leandro Lowe 2 years in a row in the no-gi worlds.
Wow.
Just, he has an insane style. Like Gilbert Burns is so much pace.
Yeah.
He has insane gas tank and he's one of the fastest guys in jiu-jitsu without question. And Leandro Lowe at that time was basically considered the best, but put him in that no-gi and he can't hold on, and Gilbert was just... So I saw that and I was like, wow. So you track a guy like Gilbert Burns, who definitely is a world champion in jiu-jitsu, great, and has evolved now to maybe be a title contender. It's taken him 10 years to get to where he is now. And he's evolved, clearly. It's awesome. But almost no one is Gilbert Burns. And look how long it's taken him to get to where he is now. And the UFC is like, it's just not a path. It's like the NBA. It's like people go, oh, I'm going to
But
play
are you
in the NBA.
saying that there should be more people that do well out of it? Or like...
No,
Because
I'm
in a
saying
way,
it's illusory.
The rarity of it is what makes it such a pinnacle,
of
isn't
course,
it?
but there's plenty of people getting into MMA and getting bad injuries and getting long-term problems thinking that it's a career path and it's not.
Right.
Like the Hollywoodness of UFC is so heavily sold that
Has an
it's an
allure
option.
to it.
It's nonsense.
So bright.
It's so nonsense. When you get your first broken
But
nose,
they all know that.
No.
Like, when people start, it's not like the UFC's out there, like driving around in an ice cream truck trying to coax people in.
this
or are
your
they?
career.
Or
No.
are
They have scouts.
Okay.
And they say there's a path.
Okay.
But I'm saying that like if you go through the amateur ranks, because there's a clear path now.
Okay.
You go amateur, you go pro, all that stuff. Anyway, I don't want to like be inherently negative about it. It's just me. Like I used to be obsessed.
It's hard
with
for you to separate it when you're watching it. You're like,
it hurts me. Even when I see the guys I don't like get smashed, which I kind of in a dark way like.
We all do.
I feel so bad. Like, oh, you're never going to breathe right again. The problem is when I see an injury, I see the rehab.
yeah.
I'm like, bro, that's 6 months. You're 18 months
So
right there,
true.
like
So
Joey
true.
with his knee, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have sympathy pains for you because I like almost had to reco my knee off a almost completely torn medial and a torn PCL and all kinds of problems. I couldn't walk properly for almost 6 months. It was so much pain, so many painkillers, just time on ice with your leg up. So when people are like, oh yeah, just pop my knee, you're like,
Yeah.
I know too much.
Yeah, that's right.
Ignorance is bliss. Oh, it's just a knee pop's fine.
It's true.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. I'll rest tomorrow.
Yeah.
Dudes, welcome to episode 67, JB Podcast. We got James Tenacity Tomlinson in the house.
Jay Tizzle.
My guys, thank you very much for having me. I'm so stoked to be back.
Us.
And I don't want to disappoint because I know we got hype.
We got big hype. JET did a podcast with us way back, maybe episode 20 odd or 30 odd, which was more around the discussion of his jiu-jitsu journey, being an accomplished black belt, training out of the esteemed Absolute MMA in St Kilda.
Correct.
Right, and coaching at King's MMA, amongst other things. But today we're taking a slightly different path. We want to talk to JT about more of a self-development type realm, which is something that you presented to us when you came on the Jungle Brothers retreat maybe 3 years ago or
Yes.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Too long ago.
Something
Four
like that.
years ago.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
before we moved into this gym, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was the last retreat we ran actually, which was epic. We had such a cool turnout, cool crew.
Firas.
We had Firas from not from Melbourne, from Sydney. We had a solid turnout of humans from the gym. A couple of outsiders. Was that when we had Ash?
Yeah, Ash Jones.
CrossFit
Yeah, I'm pretty
Charge,
sure.
those and Ed. Yeah, it was mad. But essentially, in that retreat process, we go away for like a long weekend. I think it was 3 nights. We went and stayed up on this awesome little spot in the Northern Beaches, and we just train probably an irresponsible amount of volume per day.
It's almost overtraining.
Yeah, and we do so much fighting, strength training, working on the rings. We're out in the water, breathing, all of it. But JT presented a thing to us. It was a cool little presentation you did, which at the time was called
The Big Five.
The Big Five. And we're going to dive into that today, and it's evolved since.
Yes, it has, definitely.
Do you want to give us a little BG on, I guess, kind of the overview of what it is?
Yep.
And
can I quickly just segue back to that camp?
Oh, yeah.
Because this is fairly important in my life, let me say. When I heard about when I'd seen the prior camps, I was like, man, I'd like to be there. And then I messaged you and I was like, hey man, could I get involved with that? And you were like, yeah, man, do it. It'll be great. And then I was working on this idea of the Big Five and really trying to cultivate it. And there has already been a book published called The Big Five. It's actually fairly different to what I'm working on, but it doesn't matter. All I want to say about the camp, 2 very significant things occurred to me at this camp. One was how much I love the JB tribe and what you guys have built here, and I felt like part of the tribe, and it was extraordinary.
Preach.
Bro, it just made me love this place all that much more because, obviously I get to see you guys. I've seen you guys over the years. And obviously Joey and I have a shared consciousness, but it's one of those things that to meet your people and to see what you've engendered and then further those lessons was very big for me to really take that on board. And I was like, this is aspirational. This is what you want to build that fam, crew, gang, posse, which you just don't get in adult life. You get it when you're in school or you get it in a sports team or people that you kind of spend time around for a reason other than your work. But it was just super, it was lovely. It was so good. Also, meditation. So we were on the beach that morning when we were lying on the beach doing the meditation. I was thinking about my life and I was thinking, man, I've had a really good life and I'm grateful, but I felt like I hadn't really done anything in terms of what have I made or what have I contributed or I don't know. I look at my life in different ways. And then a little voice in my head said, hey man, you made a card game. And I was like, I did, didn't I? The voice was like, why didn't you make that card game? I was like, I don't know. Anyway, I just came out of the meditation and then I witnessed Paulie run barefoot up the mountain and down the mountain, one of the most savage trail runs barefoot. And I was
that the one where I was burning the whole time?
Mate,
Nah, that was your second stab at it.
Okay, right.
I don't even know.
The burning one was when you did it with just the 3 of us.
Yeah.
You, me, and T.
I don't even know how you did. I was like, this guy, because I was feeling it bad in shoes.
It was a rocky, fucking sharp part.
Trail. Horrible.
It was inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
So I was like, this guy just has depth of suffering in him, which I appreciate. And I made the card game Jugo, which has changed what I've done in the last 4 years. And it honestly, I'll be honest, if I hadn't been lying there meditating, contemplating bigger things, maybe the thought wouldn't have occurred to me and I would have kept that idea parked. And now that idea is evolved into something massive. But we won't go super deep into it. But I just want to note that about the camp and the value of the camp.
That's cool. So it kind of came to you in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I had
back up to the surface.
Yeah, I'd had that idea kind of about 2 years before, and then I'd parked it for various reasons with life and things happen. People say, "Oh, why didn't you pursue that idea?" You don't know. I just didn't put energy that direction. I just didn't legitimize it or whatever.
So cool.
It's the beauty of the camp. So it's the getaway. It's removing yourself physically from your everyday thing. And obviously you're from Melbourne, so it was a flight away as well, further distanced from whatever things that hold you back from thinking about that. And then furthermore, you're actually meditating and you're focusing on listening to what's going on the inside.
And you don't have to run your schedule. It's all decided for you. When you sleep, when you eat, what you're eating, what you're training. It's kind of nice. You just become a passenger to that, which really does allow. I notice a similar thing when I'm on holidays to a lesser degree, where I start having all of these creative ideas because all of a sudden there's space for them to bubble up.
Totally.
Make room, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little bit disappointing because it makes you realize, fuck, the rest of the time,
Yeah.
these things are being suppressed.
Yes.
You know, because there's no room for them.
Mate, 100%. Yes.
But yeah, it's cool you mentioned that. It makes me think I should probably. It's been a big year, right? We should. It's important to try to make the time and the space for those things to occur again.
it's powerful.
Like,
If you,
yeah.
if you guys do it again, I'm there.
Sick.
100%.
Well, the talk. Well, was it this year? No, next year.
Next
Rarotonga.
year, September.
Next year, September. We've put it out there. Rarotonga,
yes.
Cook Islands,
Cool.
which would be the retreat, which would be probably the biggest one, and it would be a week, and it would be
Yep.
fucking sick.
Yeah.
Such a good place for
The
it.
homeland of JB Tiora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we knew his 75 middle names, we
Then
could
I would
spit them all
say
out.
Tiora, what do you
But yeah, cool. Thanks for mentioning. Which, quick plug, Jugo is your card game.
It is.
We now stock it at the gym. Paul, I bought a box.
Oh,
Send
sick.
the invoice later.
Yeah, I want to know like how it's all going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a legit card game based on jiu-jitsu that you've created. Can you give us a quick little, like, where's it at?
Well, it's
Who
evolved.
sells it?
Like, it's evolved. A few people sell it. Shout out to DC Academy in Melbourne. Also, shout out 10th Planet South Melbourne. They're my first ever retailers.
Look into it.
Great.
Also, Alliance Sydney. Adam's getting behind it, and
Course.
obviously you guys too, which is
Awesome.
awesome. Also, shout out our boy Jake O'Driscoll, who will become the first distributor in Western Australia.
Ah, what a legend.
Yeah, such a nice guy. But I guess
He's a
the
good
thing
man.
is this, like, the essence of it is I'm a nerd and I love, like, I'm just a big kid stuck in an adult's body, right? I love playing games and used to crush Uno with my sisters. And what did I learn from Uno? Nothing. How to cheat.
Dude, I play Uno with Hattie sometimes,
yeah.
and it's just fucking, it's awful. The cheating.
Oh,
And I've had
yeah,
to
yeah,
say to
yeah,
her,
yeah.
you know, I'm not gonna play with you anymore.
Yeah, you gotta
unless you
tell
stop
them.
cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, it's basically, it's a great game because it's not linear. So it's numbers and colors, and it's totally different to a normal card game. It was actually invented in the 30s by a barber. in the
Uno
US.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, but if you don't know colors and numbers, go back to first grade, homie. Like, if you're learning,
Yeah.
like, if you're learning colors and numbers as you're playing Uno, you're behind the game. But the thing is, like, I thought about it and I thought, how come there isn't a jiu-jitsu game? Because we love the game of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, and for the best part, what gets you really addicted is the mental stimulation other than, like, the physical bashings.
Yes. And it's always referred to as a game.
As a game.
And the chess and
the chess,
yeah.
right? So I thought the way I look at jiu-jitsu is sequencing. And that's just my approach. But because I have, like, a bit of an education background, one of the key things I learned in skill acquisition or mental acquisition is the point at which you...
Sorry for the leaf blower outside, folks.
That's right.
As you were, brother.
Is the gamification. Doesn't matter if you're teaching kids or adults. If you can make something a game, people, once they learn the rules of the game, they retain it. And that's the thing. Like, the ideas behind jiu-jitsu are kind of esoteric. Like, you're so busy getting squashed, it's hard for you to put thoughts with thoughts. And one of the hardest things is to teach kids. But this has evolved. I just started by making a game. I had an anti-jiu-jitsu girlfriend, but she loved cards. So I started making this game, and she was like, it's so nerdy. Why are you doing that? And I'm like, because I want to. Like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But then when I played the very rudimentary version of the game, she loved it.
Yeah.
And she beat me 4 games in a row.
Bang.
And she's like, I like this game. And I was like, dang. But also I was like, yes, there's something to the game, right?
Yeah.
So I made a very basic version of the game, which was based on chance. And it was just kind of guard, sweep, control, sub, roll the dice, defend, roll the dice. But people liked it. But I played it with Dungeons and Dragons people, Magic people, Jiu-Jitsu people, just people in general. And the biggest feedback I got was, one, you need to improve the graphics. And the second one was, it needs more to it than just this chance deal. And I knew that. So I started to cultivate this idea of flow icons, which are like suits. The same way you have hearts, clubs, diamonds, spades in typical card game. The different like guard sequences, like a certain guard to a certain sweep to a control to a sub, was a suit, which is actual jiu-jitsu. So what you're looking to do is match those suits together.
And then you can lay them down.
And it's stronger because it's 4 of a kind, right? And same with cards. If you've got 2 pairs, it's not as strong as 4 of a kind. Like 3 of a kind is stronger than 2 pairs, but it's still, you know. And so it's all about trying to conceptually get people to actually learn jiu-jitsu, but you don't need to know jiu-jitsu to play the game.
Sick.
And what's been great is I pitched to a large toy card game distributor, and they were like, when the first version, they were like, it's a bit early, but the idea is good. Come back to us. So I spent 18 months like a total retard. So for any of you out there who've got an iPad, I got a Boss iPad, like big banger with Procreate. If it hadn't been for that, the game wouldn't have happened. You know, I've always loved graffiti and design and art my whole life, and so it's a great creative outlet for me. I was there with a ruler on my iPad, dragging the stylus across the ruler to make a straight line because I didn't know what I was doing. I would get a shot glass to draw a circle around, and then after 3 months, I was like, this is taking way too long. I've done like 3
I've got to learn
designs.
how to draw a line.
So I went in, and you know, it's Apple. They're nice. They're like young, condescending, swagged up people. And the guy's like, oh, we've got a thing called line correction. Just have a look. And then he's just like, he did a squiggly line and just held the stylus on the page for 3 seconds, and it just straightened. And I was like, what? And then he's like, look, it works for circles too. And he just went, bleh, and then held it, and it just went, ging. I was like, oh, stab in the heart. But I was like, all right, dope. What else can you show me? They're like, oh, here's the brushes, and here's this, and here's that. And I was like, right. So in like, because I was so focused, I asked like all the questions, and after that session, I knew as much as any of them in the store.
Bang.
Then I left and I did some online courses through Udemy and Patreon and stuff, and just invested money into learning how to do digital design. 18 months later, I redesigned the whole game, like kept the logo, changed it all up, and just released the most recent version, which is the Jugo core deck, last December. And since I've released it, I've sold over 1,500 copies of the game.
Wow,
So cool.
well done.
I got a US distributor.
Cool.
I've got a Japanese distributor. We're just working on the Europe piece. And the core deck is white belt. So look, if you can get on board with the game, it's cool because it's technical enough. But if you're interested, yeah, you can go for the blue belt expansion. It's more technical. There's also a purple, brown, and black expansion. That's what's coming in the next 12
How
months.
wicked.
And there's also a book because the card game comes from a story. And so there's the book that goes behind, which is the story of the first ever jiu-jitsu superhero.
Sick.
And we'll leave it there. We'll get we'll play the game later.
So have you got the white belt, the best?
The core deck.
Yeah, newest version. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll have to
100%.
check that out.
Yeah, where's it? It's up on the shelf there.
It's cool.
Mate, take us to the Big Six. Tell,
Okay.
what is it and how
6?
how did it come about?
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah, Big Five's copyrighted.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it is copyrighted, but it's like anything, like jiu-jitsu. You have an original idea, but then someone's like, "Oh, that's like this thing that like Cabrinha did," and you're like, "Oh, I didn't learn it from him. I made it up."
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's original, right?
Came to it.
You come to it to yourself, and my sister's so good at troubleshooting any of my ideas. I get kind of hype. My baby sister's like quite a creative person. She's an entrepreneur and has her own business. And so if I'm ever like just vibing, I'll just like text her and be like, "Yo, check this out. How sick is it?" She'll be like, "Is that like these 5 other things that already exist?" I'm like, fine. Just
She's good to have.
burst my bubble. But she's good too, because if it's original, like Jugo, because I like bounce the idea
give
off
it
her
to
for
you,
Jugo, because I had all kinds of like I had all different ideas for the name. I bounce ideas off her. Anyway, the Big Five exists. But in terms of, it's very different to what I have. And look, I've been a personal trainer since 2002, 18 years.
God damn.
I've been a personal trainer more than half my life. I've done it longer than most people have done anything. And honestly, if you kind of filter through all the different things, there are some key principal things that are higher leverage than others, in truth. And I've learned this from people who are smarter than me. So Fabio Gurgel, I think, is one of the smartest minds in jiu-jitsu, but also business. Very savvy businessman. And then also Charles Staley, possibly one of the greatest S&Cs of all time. He came up with EDT, escalating density training.
Strength conditioning coach,
Yeah.
S&C for the
S&C.
people out there.
Apologies if you're not across that. Fuck you. I mean, that's okay. You don't know what you don't know. It's fine. It's very condescending that you're listening to like an S&C podcast and you don't know what that means.
Strength and movement, bro.
Oh, sorry.
That we teach here.
S&M. I'm all about that S&M, man. I do jiu-jitsu. I like to see the suffering and inflict it and also experience it a little bit myself. Except we wear white pajamas. Or black pajamas, depending on how you vibe it. It's one of those things that, because Charles Staley said this in a seminar that I saw, and he's a very smart guy and he's very humble, which is uncommon for strength conditioning coaches. And he said, techniques are many, principles are few. And those were the exact words that came out of Fabio's mouth when he was talking about jiu-jitsu. He's like, a technique is irrelevant if you don't understand why you're doing it, in like what context. Because it's the thing that people are like, oh, this is cool. Look at this cool, shiny thing. But it's like, yeah, you've got to have the right tool for the job. What is the job you're working on? And also ask the question, why are you working on that job? Like, why is that a good job for you to pursue? So I kind of went through all my different things that I've learned in my life and tried to kind of filter through and go, what are the best things that I do? What are the things that I do every single day that makes me healthier and better? So I'm 37 years old now. I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30. And not that I plan to stop at any point. I just didn't think I would be, you don't imagine yourself at a certain age. And the interesting thing that occurs to me is that I'm fitter, healthier, and stronger than 99% of anybody I'm in the gym with in jiu-jitsu or anywhere else. Just anywhere. No, that's not a brag. That's just because I'm lived a conservative life, which is based around living in the gym and doing healthy things. So the Big Five was all about really trying to tap into what I feel is the most high leverage activity you can do. And recently, because contribution is a really important thing to me, I've kind of added a sixth thing, but that's to do with memory and learning and contribution. So it was previously, each category was kind of named differently, but I spoke to a friend of mine and she had said, why don't you change them so they all start with S, so they're easy to remember? So you can just go, and I was like, that's actually really smart. Shout out to my friend Jess, who's a physio from Melbourne, who has amazing twin daughters.
Wow.
And when she was pregnant with twin daughters, she was in the gym deadlifting 90 kilos. And this woman is a 55 kilo little blonde human, but a savage, a gym savage. Credit to her. Shout out Jess. So I had to think about the order of the day, because whenever I'm like worked with clients, worked with people, and I think about my day, what order you do these things in is kind of up to you, but I kind of have a suggestion around how you can do it. So the Big Five, I think when you get up in the morning, you can do this two ways because it depends. So the way it's broken down is sweat. So you got to sweat every day. However you do that, whether you lift, you're doing some cardio or more intense stretching or mobility work, you got to sweat every day for a lot of reasons. And we'll get into that. We'll unpack that. Still, you got to find stillness. One of the hardest things for any human to do, and I'll be honest, this is probably mine. Be still of mind. Like I can sit there and kind of tune out, but that's not what it is. It's like being able to still your mind without, I follow like more of like a Buddhist kind of meditation approach, but it's really just mindfulness. It's just practicing mindfulness. And, you can get into immense detail on that, or you can keep it super simple. But what I find where people crumble is when you try to make them sit still and shut their eyes and breathe, they can't handle it. It's like people like myself. It's like me not having coffee. Like, why does this feel so uncomfortable? Why am I not stimulated? People struggle. But I think if you can find stillness at the start of the day, it sets you up so well for being mindful and keeping quality in all your actions throughout the day. Don't get me wrong, there's a great value in meditating in the afternoon and also in the evening before bed, definitely. But let me explain my order. So I say sweat, still, spark. Spark is all about being creative. You have to do something creative every day. I believe creativity is the absolute antidote to depression. Now, there's plenty of people out there who say, oh, but there's heaps of creative artists out there who are depressed. Yes, that's true. But in the moment of flow and creation, they are not depressed. When you are in a flow state, you are not depressed. You are at your you're in your zone. Like that's usually where people are happiest because they're not thinking it's a very seamless connection between, higher order thinking and the body, which is a beautiful thing. However you achieve it, people achieve it in a lot of different ways. So some people are like, well, I'm not an artist, but my mum's like, she's a gardener. She should have been a writer, but she never gave herself enough credit. She's an amazing reader, and she always wanted to write a crime novel, never did it. But her creative process is gardening. When she's gardening, she's in flow. She's in ecstasy. She loves it. She's not thinking about the worries of the world and the bills and my irresponsible father burning down the house trying to enhance some electrical nonsense in the roof. You know, that's her vibe. And some people it's cooking. They get a great, like my girlfriend gets an immense satisfaction out of making all the elements, juggling all the elements and chopping the food and tasting. And that's a creative process. So I think the idea of, oh, you're a creative, I'm not, that's bullshit. We are all creative in different ways and we may not acknowledge it, but if you enhance creative activity, you'll enhance your happiness. The next thing on that
preach
is scribe. So the reason why I like to do scribe, I do it when I keep my diary. So Joey and I are both writing notes and we've both got our mono journals. For me, it's a mixture of accountability and just structure, ordering my crazy mind. The most important conversation you have every day is the conversation you have with yourself. There is a lot of negative self-talk that we all experience, which is a default mode. It's very easy for us to be negative. It actually takes us more energy to see the positive because it takes courage. Because you've got to defy your fears and doubts to say, I think it'll work. Because the fear is you'll be wrong. If you go to negative and you go, it's probably not going to work, it doesn't work, you're like, I was right. No courage in me, not necessary. I'm definitely not going to get embarrassed. I'm the pessimist. Yeah, like it doesn't help anything. I think the thing is I think about my actions much more broadly now from a social responsibility point of view. If I'm more positive and I put the energy into being a better person, I give you permission to be a better person. Like if it's a shit situation and we both know it, and I go, you know what? We'll get through it. Like, because we're all here and we're all mates and we'll bloody tell a story about it later. No one's going to die. And you go, okay, yeah, all right. We can take that tackle. Oh, no, this is fucked. It's fucked. I told you it's fucked. No, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. And everyone's like, oh, mirror neurons are a real thing, right? And
mirror neurons?
Mirror neurons. So you will kind of start to mimic the behavior of another person depending on how they behave. And whoever is the most convinced convinces the other, right? So in negotiation, if I'm rock solid and I'm not moving on whatever it is, and I let you know that you won't convince me, if you're not that committed to what this thing is, you'll go, all right, whatever you say then. All right, it's not worth it. It's not worth the energy. But that said, if I say, hey man, it's not that bad. Yeah, even if it's absolutely terrible. If you tell yourself, hey, this is not so bad. Like just keeping that. Like they talk about pessimism makes you suffer twice. Because you're thinking, oh, this is terrible. And then when you experience the terrible thing, it's terrible. So it's double suffering, right? But if you go, nah, it's not so bad. In the moment, you are not suffering. And then when you're doing it, okay, you got to suffer a bit, but then you go, actually, it's okay. You know, anticipation is always greater than the event. So if you make your anticipation, angst, terrible, you know, the event is whatever it is, right? And so much, and this comes from meditation too, is like projection. If you can go, no, I'm going to get something out of this, even if it's going to suck. I'm determined to make this beneficial, not just be a victim to it. Like I'm kind of imposing my will on how I use my mind in this physical suffering or whatever it is, you know? So when we come to scribe is the diary keeping. That's the conversation you have with yourself. So, you know, I don't know if you guys watch Star Wars in this isolation. I have...
No.
Okay.
It was a firm no.
Unacceptable.
I've never watched Star Wars.
That's okay. So
the new ones look a bit cooler though.
No. Shush. Okay, no chat.
I've watched more, not a huge fan.
I played Dungeons and Dragons. Is
children.
That cool?
I think it's cool if you say it's cool, right? Like, I mean, you strike me as a cool guy, Joe. I mean, like
I never played D&D.
We're related. So I think there by association, you're cool.
But I've watched it because the kids, the last few years, brought me to all of them.
Well, my girlfriend and I had a bit of a disagreement. Like I care about films way too much. I emotionally invest in films, like so hard. Like I'm in there with all the characters. I know.
I got no problem with that.
They're my friends, right? My girlfriend doesn't care.
She didn't care.
She kind of watches it, plays Sudoku, calls her mum. She's like, she's not watching. She's watching, but she's not watching. She calls herself Dory. She can watch the same film 3 times and forget the outcome.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I find that really kind of insulting.
My wife can watch a
movie. They're my friends. This is their life story. This is their journey. You don't care? She's like,
I tend to be more like you. I think my wife can watch a film and miss the first part. Like if she goes to the toilet, I say, I'll pause it for you. She's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, huh?
What?
Yeah.
No.
Like if I miss the credits rolling, I'm like, start again. You know?
Yeah,
So
you
start
want
it just
you want to be in the experience
from the beginning because that's
Yeah.
part of the film.
the
Yeah.
vibe, right?
I don't get it.
It's crazy.
But it's probably there's also, I find, a bit of a it's less when they take that approach, a person, there's less buy-in from them, which means they don't have to be committed. So it's
Yes.
kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So they're like, oh, this is boring. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
It's almost leaving the door open for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you guys know me. If you're going to get swimming. If you're going to get wet, you might as well go swimming, right? You got to jump in to swim, y'all. Shout out Mac Miller. But I think the interesting thing is we got Disney Plus. And my girlfriend, when we first started dating, it was almost a deal breaker. I said, "Oh, are you into any films?" She was like, "Oh, not really." And I was like, "All right, this isn't going well." Because I like it's it's a bit of, for me, it's a character test. I'm like, "Oh, can we
And it's
relate?"
probably what you spend time doing.
Well,
in
no,
your
I had a
leisure
sheltered
time.
childhood. I vicariously lived my life through films like Indiana Jones.
sure.
How cool would it be if I could have a whip? And
love
Mum's like,
you.
"Do your homework." Okay. If I knew how to whip, show you what to do. And she said, "Oh, we talked about Star Wars." And I was like, "Oh yeah, classic." And she's like, "I like the newer." This is before the most recent. She's like, "Oh, I kind of like the newer ones better than the old ones." And I was like, "Bah, who are you cretin?" It's like you like Jar Jar Binks. Misa no like the old Star Wars. Oh God,
I
was
might
like-
agree with her.
mate. That was like, I got a bit upset, and then I was like, "All right,
Sorry,
she
JT.
clearly doesn't care about these things. It's okay. Don't get emotional." And so I said to her, "Look, what if we watch all of Star Wars from prequels to OGs to new guys, and I actually explain it to you so you know what the hell is going on?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay," because she just doesn't have the continuity. She's like, "Who's that guy? Is that his son, or are they uncle? Did he die?" She's just not. And when I actually broke it down for her, she's like, "Oh, that makes way more sense. I get this, yeah." And she started the vibe on the whole mythology. She's like, "Wow, that's like a whole world and stuff." And like her whole appreciation for it changed because I was kind of like doing some behind the scenes explanations and giving her little nerdy facts about it. And she's like, "Yeah, watching it with you changed the whole experience of what Star Wars is. The Force, to everything," because I explained to her about George Lucas and the writing and everything. And she was like, "Wow, I dig it. I really dig it." So this is how we come back to Star Wars and the big 5, big 6.
We're on Scribe, right?
Scribe. So when they're like, "Oh, the Dagobah system," and they pull out like a little orb and they click it and it goes zing, and like a million stars pop up. And they're like, "Oh, it's here." That's my mind at any given moment with ideas. My mind is the Dagobah system. In a given second, like if I'm staring into space, my girlfriend's like, "Oh, what are you thinking about?" 1,000 things. Literally, like I'm on 100 YouTube threads in a lot of different directions. Like that's how my brain works. So for me to be a functioning human, I need to write it down. I need to get it out of my head and put it on paper because then I can reflect on it. Because sometimes your ideas are whack. You know how you have a kind of hypothesis or a joke and you're like, "Oh, this is going to kill." You drop it and hits dead air. And you're like, okay, maybe I'm not that funny. I like my own jokes. Same deal with like any of these theories, games, anything. You've got to test out your ideas. It's an experiment. So Describe enables me to put my ideas on paper, but it also enables me to be more grateful. I'm definitely much more grateful and much more accepting now because I meditate and because I keep a journal. Because with my journal structure, the first thing I do is I do gratitude before I do focus and organization and to-do lists and all the other functional stuff. I stop and I think about my life and I go, "You know what? My life's awesome." And I'm gonna acknowledge what I feel is really awesome and what I love. And that's super powerful. And that there's a lot of reasons, and I can explain all the science behind pain management, everything, like getting rid of depression, all that. And then that leads sharply into sleep. So even though I journal in the morning, I also like getting any thoughts, worries, doubts out of my head before I go to bed. It slows my brain down, and then usually I read before bed. But doing the Scribe before sleep is a great system of unpacking. Because like I always say, it's a phrase that I've used forever, and it's funny, humans love a rhyme. We love a rhyme. If it rhymes, it's true, even though it's not. But don't borrow from tomorrow. There's a point of diminishing returns. Doing more at 9 o'clock at night is not actually going to make your performance tomorrow better. It's going to actually take away from the quality. Even though your FOMO and your insecurities and your ego, you're like, oh, just one more. No, you've got to stop. If you're intent on doing good tomorrow, you go to bed on time.
So you're going to write some of those down in your journal before you read. So you won't necessarily do that then go to bed, because I don't think that would work for me. Because it tends, if I talk about, it gets my brain going. If I talk about, shit that I need to do.
No, but I'm saying you could possibly. It's not a to-do list. It's my mum and dad will not die tonight.
Yeah, right.
Like when people, it's like prayer.
Okay.
So people,
What do you mean?
well, no. It's like because we all have fears and insecurities, right? And sometimes, depending on your level of tiredness, you're not feeling robust and optimistic. So sometimes at the end of a long, hard day, you can feel a bit, and you're going to go to bed, and you can take that to bed with you, and then that creeps in. So even though you're tired, you're exhausted, and your body needs rest, your brain is still mulling. Like, oh, I said that
just
wrong.
kind of emptying it out then.
Yeah, you're just like, you know what? I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to dump it on this page, and kind of make a practice. When I shut this book,
It's done.
it's done.
Yeah.
The day is done. I don't care. I'm not looking at the phone. I'm not answering an email. I'm not having a conversation with my girlfriend about the phone bill. This is done. I'm going to bed, and I'm going to read to not use my brain in a different way. I'm going to down-regulate my brain, and I'm going to switch off so I can get good quality rest. So tomorrow will be a good quality day, and I make better decisions. That's the idea behind the order.
I like that. So sleep then was number 5.
It was indeed number 5.
Right on.
And number 6, which has come up more recently, well, not recently, but probably definitely the last 2 years, like since we had that chat, is share. Share, because I think contribution is the biggest thing we can do. And I think I mentioned this before. It's one of my favorite phrases I got out of it. It's called legacy. It's the 12 things that we can learn from the All Blacks.
Oh, yeah, I read that. Oh,
Yeah.
I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah.
So cool.
I love it. It's fantastic. It's all about being a good human. And it says one of the last principles is, are you being a good ancestor? Because when you wear that jersey, they're like, do you know who wore this jersey before you? You have to do it better than them. You got some shoes to fill, right? So in 30 years, when someone looks back, they're like, dang, I want to be like you. Like, essentially, not that this isn't about legacy. This is about doing the right thing and just aspiring to be better. Not in a, not trying to impress people way, but just to bring yourself back to good qualities of being a human. Contribution, doesn't matter who you are, it will make you happier. Helping people makes us happy. We want to see good for others, whether they are our close friend or not. When you help someone out, you should feel better about yourself. Like, you did something good there. That's great. And it is absolutely one of the key tools for curing depression. If you give someone a responsibility outside of themselves, whether it's a puppy, a plant, anything, it takes themselves out of their own head and tries to put them in the shoes of another living thing, whether it's a human or not. And in those moments when they're considering the needs of others and the thoughts of others, they're not ruminating on how terrible their life is. And it is fantastic for building self-esteem. Now, there's plenty of people out there who are people pleasers and do everything they can to help others, but have terrible self-esteem. But that's different. They're compensating for the fact that they need to be liked, and they need that person's endorsement to feel like they're okay because they don't feel that they are okay. That's different. But what I'm saying with the share thing is this is also related to memory and learning. Because I've been teaching jiu-jitsu, I've been a jiu-jitsu instructor now. Like, I've been taught jiu-jitsu for a while, but now I kind of teach at my own nominated academy. I don't own it, but I teach there. Kings MMA, shout out. Kings, Baronia, Bayswater, what?
Gang sign.
Yeah, throw up the gang signs. It's mainly just a mullet. But I don't
Mullet's
have
wing.
one.
Do me a favor, when you turn to him, just drag that with you a bit.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things, excellent, that sharing has helped me get better at jiu-jitsu. Even though I don't train my own jiu-jitsu more, my fundamentals have gotten better because I'm constantly trying to pitch it and reframe it to beginners. And it's made me think more about what I actually know. Like, do I know this? I actually have to sit down and go, hang on a second. I'm trying to explain this to somebody who's just like, you're talking an alien language to me, bro.
Totally.
I don't know what you're talking about. And that sharing process has made me rethink how I communicate and everything like that. But also, I feel good when I share. And I think it's one of those things that, like, don't get me wrong, give to charity monetarily, but one of the best things you can do is give your time and your energy and your skills, you know?
Totally.
And I feel like it's one of the most important things you can do as a continuation. And that's what I was saying about the legacy. Are you being a good ancestor? Not that it's huge. It's always been in the back of my head, but we are all a context and a continuation. We exist in a moment in time within a context. And how we pass on to the next person, being a thread in the rope, because that's what they have at the All Blacks. They have like a rope and it has like a silver thread and a red thread, and it's all twined together, and it's saying like we are all strands in the rope, which is the continuation of our society. And if you make the rope stronger, then the rope continues, right? And that's the idea behind it, that like reach one, teach one, share. And that's like a really important thing. And I feel like the idea between being happy and healthy, separate of fitness, even though, you know, you can be fit, you can be strong, all that, that's good. That's a small piece of the puzzle. And all these things in the big 5/big 6, they don't actually take a lot of time. It's literally, each of them is 5 minutes a day. So it's like literally half an hour a day with all these little habits, and it can be so epic, you know? And this is the point I wanted to say about sharing and supporting other people. This came back, this is a throwback, but I don't know if you remember, Kevin Durant gave one of the longest acceptance speeches in the history of acceptance speeches when he won the MVP. It went for like...
What sport?
NBA.
NBA.
Durantula.
You know him?
That's okay.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I didn't follow his career, but
I mean, don't get me wrong, I watched The Last Dance and shit. But no, Durant, I don't know.
It's okay. Look, I probably give Durant too much credit. A lot of people kind of hate on him because he joined... he was OKC, and OKC were going up hard against Golden State, and they would lose to Golden State. And then Golden State bought Durant.
Right.
OKC were kind of smoked because Durant was like, he's a superstar in his own right. He's, you know, anyway, long story short, he thanked everyone in the team. Everyone. He acknowledged everyone. He's crying a lot too. He's like, I don't usually do this. But he thanked everyone, man.
Americans are great with that.
He's like he's a soft-spoken guy. He's not a big, bold LeBron James kind of cat. He's amazing. Anyway, and one of the things he talked about was like one of the players who's like not famous in their team came and put a note in his locker and said, man, like we believe in you, we support you, we love you. Like we're also happy because of you, man. Like, and he was having all these self-doubt issues and all these problems. And he's like, read that note. He's like, man, that actually turned me around. You writing that note and you putting that in my locker, that changed the whole season right there. Like, I wouldn't be an MVP if I didn't get that from you, because I was just feeling depressed, and even though he's this amazing athlete, right? And so you can never underestimate how those small gestures, it only took that guy 5 minutes and he's a superstar and this guy's not. He's a workhorse. But that gesture of belief or help or sharing of goodwill, it can make a huge difference to someone. So when I'm talking about sharing, I'm not just talking about like, oh, I have a skill, I'll share a skill. Sharing of goodwill is big, and I think it's good for everybody. So when you go down that list, I feel like that is actually absolutely essential in terms of like things that you should do every day.
That's mad. So reviewing,
Yes.
we've got sweat, we've got still.
The reason why I put it in that order is because
That's how you follow it during the day?
when I've meditated in the past, I'll be honest, I've fallen asleep. I don't know if you've ever tried to just, if I lie still or sit still.
It used to happen to me. You know what that indicates?
Too tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you need sleep.
Yeah. but I'm saying if it's the first
That's
thing
why I
you
never
do-
try.
Yeah.
Because I just won't.
Don't expose yourself. Have to get back.
don't be weak. But like, no, if you've just gotten out of bed, it's 5 a.m. Sitting still is not how I want to start. Like,
So you get a sweat on.
I need
and-
to
yeah.
move my body just to just come back to life, right?
Yeah,
That's
wake the cells up.
for me. And it doesn't mean that you've got to go for a run. Like, I might do mobility.
Mm.
Oftentimes, the first thing I do in the day is drink a glass of water and do 10, 15 minutes of mopes. just to bring the mind-body connection. Then I'll sit and then I'll breathe and then I feel much more like cells are alive and awake. So sweat, still, I've got it in order here. Spark, scribe, sleep,
share.
Share is like kind of a caveat.
So you've been writing this or writing something over the years. You've come to boil these principles down. How long have you been kind of putting this together? Have you always written notes and always knew you were putting this together? Or was something more that came to you in recent years?
No, I think it's...
Or after the camp?
I kind of feel like I'm on my way out of the health and fitness industry in the sense that I feel like there are many things that are unhealthy about health and fitness. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of fit, strong people out there who are not healthy. And I was one of them. And I still continually fight to be healthier. You know, like the abuse of caffeine, like the always being tired thing. Like the expectation on you as a trainer is you've got to be the living, breathing, inspo, coach, counselor, can do everything, small business owner. It's all bullshit.
You've obviously been following my Instagram quite closely.
You know, that's a tough ask, man. And I want to be healthier. Like in truth, I know I can be strong if I just put my mind to that. I know I can improve my endurance if I put my mind to that. But these things are actually quite minor in the grand scheme of the world. Like, don't get me wrong. For a lot of people, it's a big battle to stay active and do these things. But that's because mentally we subscribe to the current paradigm. If you can change someone's mind about what is the right way to conduct yourself and live your life in terms of, I'm not saying morally right and wrong. I'm saying more like what's healthier. We aspire to be more healthy in this COVID thing, getting people to spend more time at home, cook food, be with loved ones. That's healthy. That's how humans function really well.
Yeah.
Spending long hours at the office is redundant. It's not, the corporate machine didn't care about you. Economy didn't care about you. It's all made up, right? So I think spending more time for people to cultivate introspection, talk about making space, to have thoughts, creative thoughts, and kind of question what's going on, not in a like, is there aliens type Joe Rogan vibe, like question everything. More just...
He could be listening, so just choose your words carefully.
Okay, shout out Joe. Love your work, but if I was a 50-year-old on TRT, I'd fight you. You're lucky I'm 37 and primed and natural. I'll back kick the shit out of you, Joe Rogan.
Oh, God.
I'm putting it out there right now. I reckon my back kick's stronger. I reckon my glutes are better.
You will meet him one day and you will crumble.
No, I'm not going to crumble, man.
You'll be like, oh my God, Joe, I'm your biggest fan.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be like, let's get out the pound for pound pressure sensor and let's back kick it together. Yeah. Because by that time, he'll be 60 and I'll be like in my late 40s and on TRT and I'll crush him.
Have you got a back kick?
Oh my God.
Look at this guy. Yeah. Well, how come I don't know about it?
We can't
if it's
speak.
So good.
We can't speak. Did I tell you I was a national champion in Taekwondo? Did you see my splits?
I didn't know that. I've seen your splits.
What are you talking about? Can we... Sorry, we need to just stop this conversation.
Just go and hit a bag and then just pause this.
I do love you. And I have to remember that.
Taekwondo champ?
Yeah, bro.
Oh, yes. You got a black belt in Taekwondo as well. Oh, damn. My kids just started a trial of Taekwondo last week. They start officially next week.
Cool.
Oh, man. Oh, well, we'll do this after the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. You don't know what you don't know. I'll forgive you.
I got a question.
Please.
So it's with a system like this, and I know you've, with a lot of your clients over the years, you've kind of instilled these ideas in them, and it's something that they follow and they've had great benefit from. Tell me kind of on a practical level, the person that comes to train with you that is overworked, got a couple of kids, running their own business, really quite time poor,
yes,
energy deficient, all of those standard sort of characteristics of a modern human who's, you know, in this paradigm that we all, most of us exist in.
Yes, indeed.
How do you enact it for them? What are your actionable recommendations?
One thing at a time. If you can't kind of throw and catch one ball, you're not going to juggle 6, right? Some people are already doing some of these things, but to lesser or greater effect. So sometimes it's not about adding things, it's about removing things. That's often what I do. one of my favorite books, and I did mention this last podcast, and it's so dope because, well, validation, because obviously I'm a smart guy. No. One of my favorite books of the last, say, 5-6 years is Essentialism by Gregory McEwen. So he's an English guy, Scottish name, lives in America. And Essentialism is a philosophy on life and how you conduct yourself. And the key tenet of it is less but better. Now, obviously, you guys know me. I try and do a lot of different stuff. But I think what I've developed as a gear is I can dial into something for 2 hours and then just withdraw, put it to the side. Now, this is the next thing. Dial in on this. I much prefer to do one thing all day. Like, that's what I love because I get in a flow and get a vibe and it's all good, but that's not often how you can live life. I try and get people to do less if I can. Like, that's pretty hard because you're basically teaching people discipline. You're trying to teach people to say no to certain things which are actually hindering their life. And that's the first step. That's the first step in making time for stillness, making time for exercise, making time for health, making time for nothing. It's not nothing, but the practice of stillness. Without getting into spiritualism, like allowing somebody to just get a little bit of space in there and go, wow, I actually feel happier. Whoa, it's crazy. Or maybe it makes them super emotional. It's like, okay, well, maybe there's some things that need to get unpacked there that you don't necessarily have to speak to me about that. You maybe need to go speak to a professional and that will help. Because I think as a young kid, I had anger management issues. I had to go speak to counselors and you had to not get in fights and had to learn to manage my own emotional response to things. And I learned a lot from doing that. And it saved me, as well as obviously martial arts and the discipline of martial arts. But the first thing I always try to get people to do is scribe. Because if you don't, okay, this is actually funny. The exception on this is happiness. You can improve your happiness without measuring it. It's actually hard to measure happiness. With that caveat, if you don't measure it, it's very hard to change. So people, whether it's their food, their sleep, their activity, their thoughts, whatever they're doing, we all do it in a fairly mindless way. We just do it. But actually, if you're trying to improve it, order it, constrain it, expand it, if you have no way of writing it down, there's no feedback mechanism. And the accountability is between you and the book, is you and yourself.
So writing it down is the form of tracking.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Look, don't get me wrong, Fitbits are awesome. People do trackables, wearables, it's fine. But when we get back to the memory piece and the learning piece, your own handwriting, and this is why I don't get people to put it in their phone, encodes in your brain in 5 or 6 different ways in terms of the way you perceive the information because it's your handwriting. So it goes in as language. It goes in as an image. It goes in creatively because it's your own artwork in a way. When you make a little stuff up and you just cross it out or different things like your own handwriting, it will store in your memory much more firmly. And people talk about this with affirmations and goals and things like write in your handwriting, put it in your wall. But it's that thing of, if you can't show me this habit, we were kind of chatting about this yesterday, Joey, I can know somebody's likelihood of success of a single improvement based on their ability to form a habit. So if they've never actually stuck to forming a new habit, and it can be anything, that will tell me a lot about how hard their journey will be to that first win. But if that person's already said, look, I never went to the gym. I started going to the gym 2-3 days a week 6 months ago. I'm still doing it, but I'm not sure what to do next. I'm like, right, you are primed to make more than one change because they've already shown they can hold one change. If you can't throw and catch one ball, don't add a second. So if I'm working with someone who's overtaxed, overkilled, big problems, the first thing I will do is try and deload them because their mental and physiological stress is through the roof. So it's like, let's make a little bit of space. Now you've got a little bit of room. Here's a new habit. Show that you can keep that. Do this every day for a month or a couple of times a week for a month.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, we're not adding anything else. We're going to do this until you do this. And once you got that, that's the building block for the next.
And so Scribe would be where you start with that.
Yeah, in terms of that habit formation and starting a program,
Gives them an opportunity to reflect on things.
And I honestly think this is the single best discipline or the single best habit I have in my life. Don't worry about nutrition, don't worry about lifting weights, don't worry about any of the other things that I've learned. I think they're very surface. you writing down your thoughts and thinking about your life and what you're grateful for is the single most powerful tool that I've come across.
Do you have a particular way that you play out your scribing? Is there an order or a format?
Yeah. I mean, look, at the moment, it's kind of like you were saying, like when you go somewhere and it's organized for you, you're going along for the journey. That's nice. And I find that like decision, we talked about, you remember Joey had mentioned this before when he was like, you were talking about a client of yours. It was like, oh, that's decision.
Units of decision,
which is true. You have only so much energy to make decisions in your day. When I come to writing my journal, my diary, it's already got a format. The Monojournal has a format, which is 3 points of gratitude, a focus to center you, ground you. What am I excited about? So it gets you optimistic, which is really cool. Then it's got 2 goals, which is actually excellent. I believe people set too many goals. They set up big checklists. It's nonsense. 2 goals and then why. It's okay. I'm doing these things and I'm reminding myself why. Like on a real serious level, not like, so I wrote here in the diary, I want to help my mum with chores. Why? Not to make my mum happy, is to contribute to my family. That's tapping into my values. I've also written, I want to roll at Sydney Alliance because I want to connect with my friends. That's important to me, you know? And you're keeping that conversation. They say self-esteem is built on the deals you keep with yourself. Keep your word to yourself. Don't break your promise to yourself. And these aren't big aspirational things. These are just things like, I care about this and I'm doing it. And you just remind yourself, you know? And then afterwards, there's like bits of to do. And then there's this kind of scribble page where I write down notes and get frenetic and dump my brain. And that gives me freedom because then I shut that book and I'm like, let's go. That's cool. I can be much more. My quality improves. I can be more present for you guys. I'm less scattered. I'm less hype. Yeah, it's better for me. But that said, I don't need this. I can sit down and keep that format myself. It's very much a routine. And sometimes I write more gratitude. Sometimes I don't write about getting excited. Sometimes I write a few things.
Yep.
You know, you can kind of cultivate, because as I was saying also, so I don't want to be making decisions when I write my journal. I just want to express myself. Like I just want to be able to open my brain and get it out. But that whole decision-making thing is like, you got to find your sweet spot. For some people, they like the kind of flow of consciousness, just write whatever's in my head. And they use that. I just don't find that is, even though it's really good for freeing you up, it doesn't help with a degree of action. You know? As much as you could sit there and meditate and think of nothing and think, oh, I feel relaxed. If you don't actually train your mind to focus, you're not actually becoming more mindful. You're just kind of becoming oblivious in a way. But that's the first step. Right? It's just being able to do that.
So when it comes to the end of the day, when you're emptying the jar of those thoughts before sleep, you could do a little bit more of that at that point. Totally. And do you do that in your journal?
No, I do that separate.
It's in a separate book.
Yeah, actually, I'll share with you guys something that I learned many years ago from a psychologist. He was like, draw a line down the middle of a page and write on one side, in control, out of control. Now, this is kind of clever because it's what's under your control and what's outside of your control. But it's like, it's priming your brain. I'm in control of this. That's out of control. You don't want to be out of control. So what I realized is what's under my control is very few things. And what I was worried about is a lot of things out of my control, like easily 20 things out of my control that concern me. About 5 or 6 things inside my control. Now he said, now you fold the page in half, long ways, and you tear it in half. So you have 2 pieces. One is the in control, one is out of control. Now you scrumple up the out of control and you just throw it in the bin.
Scrumple,
ball, throw in the bin, basketball.
That's cool.
Last Dance. I am the Scottie Pippen of goal setting. And then I don't want to say Michael Jordan.
You need to talk a lot slower. Scottie Pippen talks so slow.
But he's so calm. I think that's one of my biggest takeaways, which I think people forget. And Jordan, I'm glad Jordan acknowledges there's no Michael Jordan without Scottie Pippen. Like Scottie Pippen was the greatest number 2, and he just didn't, like, everyone knew it, but you know, Jordan's the main event. And then
that's a really cool exercise.
I keep what's in my control, right? But what I do, I don't even do the in control. I know it's in control. It's in here. I don't say, oh, it's out of my control. I write down worries and concerns.
Mm.
I look at them, I acknowledge them, I screw up the bit of paper and I throw it away. I go to bed.
No way. I love that.
Yeah, it's cool.
It seems cheesy, right? But I'm telling you,
You realize the absurdity of the things you're worried about, though,
Yeah.
don't you, in that sort of process.
But it's funny how those physical actions of you being like, it's like some Harry Potter. You have no power over me. Expelliarmus.
Another one I haven't seen.
Oh, get away! Like it's many
I'll
of these
watch it
things.
when I finish playing D&D.
It's all good. But I think there's great mythologies. Being the nerd that I am and loving to fantasize about heroes on quests and things, right? There are some great mythologies and trilogies and all these things, right? And ultimately, I always encourage people to read books, but invariably through fame and media, people probably see the movie before they might read a book, maybe.
Mm.
The Harry Potter movies are really well made. I rate them. I just rewatched all of them recently. The reason why I've been watching all these great, in my opinion, mythologies, trilogies, etc., is to tap back into that childhood thing, which is what gets you kind of excited and emotionally involved and tension, all this, because I'm writing a book for kids and young teens. And I'm not trying to derive anything from them other than I want to make sure the story I'm writing can tap into those emotions and get you along for the ride.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Try and be inspired by those heroes and those villains. And I love a good bad guy. I freaking love a good bad guy.
Do you have you read much stuff by anything by Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey and all that?
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
You
okay.
bet.
Not that I have, but I know I know a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
But it
Well,
seems it's very relevant to that storytelling piece, isn't it?
A friend of mine said he's a big fan of Dan Harmon, who's a writer and also like the mind behind Rick and Morty and a lot of other great comedy. And he always refers to this thing called the writer's journey, which is derived from a lot of Joseph Campbell's stuff.
Right.
But it's all about trying to teach writers structure. And look, it's for me, without dishonoring the book, it's formulaic. And I don't want to... I started reading it and I'm like, no, I can't keep reading this until I've written my book because I don't want it to influence how I write my book because this is a Hollywood formula. And,
Right.
And it says, oh, look, this formula is shown in this book and in this movie. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not trying to be a formula. I'm not trying to get inspired to write this. This is semi-autobiographical. I don't need you to show me how to do this.
Right.
So I started reading it off a friend's recommendation. And the funny thing is, so this is just like a silly personal training thing. I periodized the story. It's 12 months with peaks and troughs for dramatic tension. Like he's got to build up to this, like a tournament or like a performance. And then there's a bit of a dip and then it kind of builds up and then there's a bigger peak, and at the end of the year is the big climactic battle.
You're writing another book?
No, this is the book that I've been writing.
Okay, it's
But what's
this
really
format.
what's really interesting in the writer's journey, he talks about the periodization of the first act, the second act, and the third act, and
Yes,
where
yes,
tension
yes,
is
yeah.
accumulated. And I was like, how interesting. He writes it more from like a playwright's perspective,
Right.
But I came at it from an S&C, like you got to give him time to adapt. Certain level of stress. Now you're gonna wave loading for dramatic tension.
That's so
Serious.
good.
It's in the back of my thing.
That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
So have you finished writing this book?
No, I am 2/3. I'm 2/3, and I've done a bit of research on publishing books because I would like to write a book on Big 5, Big 6 and structure it so it's usable. But this story is burning. Just the characters are in me. I wrote, while I was away in America last year, I wrote 3 or 4 pages on each character. So Jugo is the protagonist. He's this little skinny kid, this little pasty kid. He's so skinny. He's got all these problems. He's like borderline autistic. His vision's not good. His skin's super sensitive, so his mum puts this 100 SPF sunscreen on him. He's a ginger. He's the only ginger in his town. The sunscreen stinks. So his name's Jugo Bell, and they call him Smelly Belly because he stinks, right? He wears hand-me-down clothes from his sisters, so he wears girls' clothes because they're super poor. So the story's set in 1991, and it's pre-internet. He lives in this little boondocky tiny town that's built around this big industrial complex factory. And he gets bullied by the bully, picks on him every day, punches him in the nose, messes him up. And the bully's name is Marcus. And the bully has been kept back. So this book is a year in the life of Jugo. It's year 6. And Marcus, the bully, has been held back in year 6 for 3 years. This is his third year at year 6. He's huge. He's freaking hench.
That's great.
He's a grown-ass man, and he boxes.
So it's written for teenagers, young teenagers.
It's written for kind of grade 6 to 8, something in that vicinity. But I think adults could vibe it. And it's all about like... so The Librarian is actually based on Michelle Nicolini, who's a 7-time world champion. Just jiu-jitsu babe. I crushed on her a little bit early in my jiu-jitsu career, and I met her, and she toe-holed the hell out of me.
Sick.
Just owned me. And I was like, yes, yeah, you're awesome. And she, like, within the first 30 seconds was like, I have a boyfriend. And I was like, cool. I just want to roll, man. I'm not going to fill you up. And she's toe-hold. Okay. I just tapped multiple times. But anyway, so The Librarian is the jiu-jitsu teacher, but it's a little shitty town. And it's a footy town, and no one cares about martial arts. So she just teaches Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the community college. This is pre-UFC, like it's set, so no one cares about. She moved to this town because her husband was an engineer. They're Brazilian, right? He got this job in this boss town.
Wait, you're talking about the story now? Or you're talking about Michelle?
No, I'm talking about the story.
Okay, cool.
The character is based on Michelle Nicolini.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with Michelle's life, but the character, if you're envisioning The Librarian, is Michelle Nicolini.
Right on.
Like, kind of hot, super deadly, very humble, friendly, nice person. So her husband dies in an industrial accident. So she's widowed. So she kind of adopts the kids in the school as her kids. And she's a librarian, and she teaches jiu-jitsu at the community college.
Nice backstories.
The only people who do it are young kids and old people. It's not popular. People just play footy. Right? I grew up in Penrith. It's kind of referential. Anyway, she says to Jugo, you should learn jiu-jitsu. You could beat the bully. I see you getting beat up all the time. You just stick your head in those books. You got to learn to defend yourself. Come learn jiu-jitsu. It'll change your life. And so the thing about Jugo, which people don't know, he's the smartest kid of all time. He has total recall. So anything he learned, he can never forget. Even watching. He can learn from watching. So he learns all of jiu-jitsu in 3 months. He's basically a black belt in 3 months. He then beats Marcus the bully with jiu-jitsu. And then Marcus is like, dang, I've been bashing this kid his whole life. And he just beat me. It's like, I got to learn this. So he says to him, hey man, can I come to jiu-jitsu? Could I learn it? It's like, yeah, dude, you can come to jiu-jitsu. But Marcus isn't the genius, or not the like freak that Jugo is. Mm-hmm. So Jugo invents a card game to teach Marcus how to do it. And that is part of the story.
That is so cool.
Jugo is born.
Jugo's born. Word is born, y'all. Shout out Queens, Brooklyn. Peace.
So you're 2/3 the way into that book.
Yeah, I'm coming into like pretty dramatic end of it because there's a whole other element to it which is epic. I don't know if we want to touch on this.
Mate, we're going to call it there actually.
Good.
Because I think I don't want to take away from what the original track. Yeah. And I think that gives us something nice to touch on next time we catch up.
Yeah, cool.
On that Big Six piece, you mentioned the actionable piece for folks was they could start writing straight away.
Yes.
That's something.
Definitely.
Can you tell us where people can get, say, the journal you use, maybe give that a little shout out, and then where folks can get in touch with you?
Definitely. So if people want to start with journaling, like I said, I love the Mono Journal, and that's done by a good friend of mine called Toby Ferrucci, one of the loveliest guys I've ever met, Olympic lifter, super strong, super nice guy, great design mind. The Instagram handle is @ThriveDaily. That's how you can get yourself a Mono Journal. They've got new ones coming out. It's super good. So definitely check out @ThriveDaily. And it's basically like personal training for journal keeping. There's lots of instruction in there. There's lots of structure.
Guidance.
Easy, yeah.
Bit of inspo.
Shows you how to do it. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think if you've never done it before, that helps. Look, I haven't put big time and energy. I mean, I've basically written 20 to 40 pages on each of those subject matters with related science that I've been sourcing, like different things that I reference in a folder. And since we spoke, I hadn't put a lot of time into it because the way I put time into it, I'll be honest, and I was saying this to Joey on the way here, one of the things that I dislike most in other people is talk without action. I don't mind people talking a big game if they do the thing, right? But I hate it when people they want to tell you what they're about, but their actions are just lacking. Because it's also what I dislike in myself. The times when I have my most self-loathing is, man, I just talked a whole bunch there and I don't feel like I'm living up to that, you know? So what I've done is just tried to live these things as thoroughly as I can. And being healthier is the biggest thing. That's why I've backed off my caffeine intake. That's why I'm sleeping more. And that's why I've made this decision to kind of step back from the health and fitness industry. Not because I've got a problem with it. I need to be healthier. I don't need to be fitter. Yes, for my personal just standards, I need a certain level of fitness and strength and to be good at jiu-jitsu and be a good leader in my own community, bulletproof for BJJ, jiu-jitsu, etc. But I'm not trying to do the popularity contest thing because it's just not healthy, man. And I want to be a good example of that. So when people say, hey, actually, man, you're a healthy guy. Like I know that's not like big and sexy, but like I want to make sure that I'm doing those things. And so in terms of finding more about like Big 5, Big 6, a lot of my actions in the next 2 to 3 years are going to be
playing that out
and saying, yeah, this is good for you. And I will, the foundation for the manuscript of the book is there, but I've got to write that Jugo story first, baby.
Man, get it done. I really would like to see the Big 6. I really like how you boiled all that stuff down. And you articulate it pretty well. And some of the things, well, all of the things I can resonate with in my own way. And I've seen them before and things that work for me. I'd love to see it in hard copy, back to back.
No, that's my goal because like to truly live those things, like the share element, the contribution element. I want to be able to have something where I can like give it to you and be like, you know what? If you're interested, give that a look. Take from it what you will, you know, so that way I don't have to waste your time, or, you know, I've got something I can refer to, and then I can get on with actually helping people, you know, that would be the best use of my time.
That's sick, man. You know? And the Jugo story, can't wait to read it to my son.
Yeah, well, that's the thing,
and daughter.
I love that.
Yeah, man, it's right down his alley.
Yeah, cool. It's really just I'd love more kids to do jiu-jitsu. I wish I found jiu-jitsu. I mean, I did taekwondo and that was great. But man, if I'd done jiu-jitsu when I was 10, you're about to find out off that back kick, son.
Bro, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Appreciate you, Joe. Appreciate you, Paulie. This is awesome. Shame Tiara's not here because I would obviously give him a kiss because I know it would make him feel uncomfortable. But no, thank you so much for this opportunity, and always stoked to be here with you guys.
Legend.
Cheers, bro.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, Paulie. Thanks to our coffee sponsor, Panavore. We actually weren't drinking their coffee today, I'm going to be honest. But I feel like I don't shout them out enough in general. And I think I missed them on the last episode. So Tree, if you're listening, you're my homie and we appreciate the brews. If you are in the Pagewood area, drop by and ask for a long black and a Joey sandwich. You will not be disappointed. Further to that, if you need anything from us, get in touch at junglebrothers.com or on Instagram at junglebrothersmovement. Whatever you need, training advice, online stuff, in-person stuff, we've got you covered. Thanks for listening, guys. If you liked the episode, please take a screenshot, post on your Instagram, tell your friends, help support the show. We'll catch you next week. Peace.